At the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, 21,000 feet below the surface, lies a warship frozen in time. She was small, lightly armed, but in her final hours, she faced giants. This is the story of the USS Johnston, the deepest warship wreck ever discovered, and one of the most courageous stands in naval history. In 1943, the USS Johnston was launched, a Fletcher-class destroyer, just over 370 feet long, sleek and fast, with a crew of 327 men. She was armed with 5 5-inch guns, 10 torpedo tubes, and light armor. These ships were nicknamed tin cans, fast but fragile. In command was Commander Ernest E. Evans. Half Cherokee, half Creek, all warrior. At the ship's commissioning, he told his crew, "This is a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way." He meant it. 1 year later, Evans and his crew would enter one of the most lopsided naval engagements in history, and change the course of it. October 25, 1944. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was underway, the largest naval battle in modern history. The USS Johnston was assigned to Taffy 3, a small American task force protecting slow escort carriers off the Philippine coast. At dawn, a terrifying sight appeared on the horizon. The Japanese center force, consisting of 23 warships, including 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, and 11 destroyers, was closing in fast. Among them, the Yamato, the largest and most heavily armed battleship ever built. The U.S. ships were completely outgunned. Taffy 3 had no battleships, no cruisers, and only 3 destroyers, including the Johnston. The American carriers were vulnerable, defenseless. Commander Evans didn't wait for orders. He made the boldest move of the battle. At 6:58 a.m., he gave the order. Commence firing. Full speed ahead. The USS Johnston charged into the storm, alone, and directly at the Japanese fleet. Within minutes, her guns opened fire, targeting enemy cruisers. At 7:16 a.m., she launched a full spread of torpedoes. One struck the heavy cruiser Kumano, blowing off her bow and forcing her out of the fight. But Johnston didn't escape unscathed. Enemy shells tore into her hull. Her bridge was hit. Her engines damaged. Evans himself was wounded by shrapnel. But he refused to stand down. The battle had only begun. Despite being damaged and outgunned, the USS Johnston kept fighting. She darted in and out of smoke, laying down cover for the escort carriers. Her crew worked without rest, manually loading shells, repairing systems on the fly, and manning guns that should have been silent. Every time the enemy targeted the carriers, Johnston turned back toward danger. She wasn't alone for long. 2 other destroyers, USS Hole and USS Herman, joined the fight. Together, they formed a wall of steel and smoke. But Johnston had already taken the brunt of the assault. A second Japanese cruiser struck her midsection. Her forward guns were disabled. Steering was unreliable. The deck was splintered. Dozens of men were injured. And yet, Commander Evans ordered another attack run. The Johnston launched more torpedoes and targeted Japanese battleships with her remaining guns. She even drew fire from the Yamato, a 72,000-ton giant firing 18-inch shells, the largest naval guns ever mounted on a warship. For 3 hours, Johnston fought enemies that should have crushed her in minutes. She disabled 1 cruiser, damaged several others, and disrupted the Japanese advance. Her courage, and the chaos she caused, bought precious time for the American fleet. But heroism has a cost. And that cost was coming. By 9:20 a.m., the USS Johnston was on her last breath. Her guns were nearly silent. Her torpedoes were gone. Her engines had failed. Fires raged below deck. Lifeboats were being prepared. And still, she fired. The remaining crew fought with what little they had: small arms, emergency power, hand-loaded shells. The Japanese fleet, confused and shaken by the tenacity of Taffy III's destroyers, began to pull back. What should have been a massacre had turned into a retreat. At 10 a.m., with Johnston dead in the water, Commander Evans gave his final command: abandon ship. The destroyer began to list, then roll. Her hull broke. Men jumped into the sea as the Johnston slipped beneath the waves. Of the 327 crew members aboard, only 141 survived. They floated in the open ocean for over 50 hours, clinging to life through oil fires, dehydration, and shark-infested waters. Commander Evans was never seen again. He was declared lost with his ship. For his actions, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. The USS Johnston, small, outgunned, and alone, had stood against an armada and earned her place in history. For decades, the final resting place of the USS Johnston remained a mystery. She had gone down fighting, and vanished into the depths of the Philippine Sea. In 2019, a team led by the late Paul Allen used sonar to locate a potential wreck more than 20,000 feet below the surface. But it was too deep for remotely operated vehicles to confirm. Then, in 2021, explorer and former Navy officer Victor Vescovo piloted a manned submersible down to the site. What he found was astonishing. Resting 21,180 feet underwater, over 6,400 meters, was the USS Johnston. Her bow was largely intact. Her hull number, 557, still visible. Her gun still pointed toward where the enemy had once stood. It was the deepest shipwreck ever discovered and explored by humans. Unlike many wrecks broken into fragments, the Johnston's remains were recognizable. A warship entombed in silence, untouched, preserved by pressure and time. Vescovo and his team filmed the wreck in ultra-high resolution, creating a digital memorial to the ship and her crew. The USS Johnston wasn't the only ship to make a stand that day. She was one of 3 destroyers, along with the USS Hole and USS Heermann, that turned into the fight without hesitation. They were part of what sailors came to call the Tin Can Navy. Lightly armored. Outclassed. But never out of the fight. These destroyers weren't designed to battle cruisers and battleships, yet they did. Together, they fired torpedoes, laid smoke screens, and acted as human shields for the slow-moving escort carriers. The Japanese commanders, stunned by the ferocity of the defense, believed they were under attack by a much larger force. In reality, it was a handful of small ships and a lot of courage. The delay they caused allowed American aircraft to launch counterattacks. It changed the course of the entire engagement. Without Johnston, without Taffy III, Lady Gulf might have ended very differently. And the cost of victory in the Pacific could have been far higher. The bravery of these men didn't just save ships. It saved lives. And it reshaped naval strategy forever. The ocean doesn't speak. It doesn't mourn. But it remembers. The wreck of the USS Johnston is more than a piece of history, it's a story sealed in pressure and silence. A time capsule of war, frozen in darkness, untouched by light for nearly 80 years. When modern explorers descend to those depths, they don't just see metal and debris. They see the final moments of hundreds of men. The sacrifice, the decisions, the fire, and the silence that followed. Every twisted bulkhead, every rusted barrel, tells a piece of the story. There are no tourists there. No crowds. No noise. Only steel. And ghosts. The ocean holds many wrecks. But few speak louder than the Johnston. She fought beyond her limits. She defied logic. And when she went down, she took with her a message. That valor has nothing to do with size. That courage doesn't care about odds. And that some stories, even in the quietest corners of the sea, demand to be remembered.